and you're going to be startled because this is only 2 weeks old, and I would urge you to keep that in mind as you hear it and see it up on your screens. You're going to see actual lists. Now, we also have joining us today an incredible man with history all over the web, and he'll tell you all about his experiences, is Walker Jones. Now, you're going to want to listen to this man and get your pencils, get your paper. You're going to want to write down questions, and he is going to give you the exact what do I do now steps. This is so important, because it's really, really very easy to introduce people to an opportunity, but you got to make it easy for them to stay in and make money. And, of course, making money is why people get into multi-level. It is exciting. Yes, of course, there are some great social components. I mean, when you can say, hey, I'd love to meet you. I've only heard you over the phone. How about we meet in Maui? Or maybe we'll go drop in on the Olympics or something. It just frees you up, and that's why people got into multi-level, and why people as far back as when John Paul Getty was the richest man in the world. And it's funny because he's credited with a quote, and I remember reading in his autobiography, it's important to find out how successful people got successful, but he said some interesting words that were also quoted by Henry Ford. And he said, I would rather have 1% of the efforts of 100 people than 100% of my own. That's pretty fascinating, isn't it? But it makes good sense, because if you get sick, and you're only depending upon you, the whole game is over. But if you get sick and the whole game is you and 100 of your friends, then, okay, you might be sick. 5 of your friends might be sick, but you got 95 people who are still out pulling in the same direction. That's the power of multi-level. And this is why guys like Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad guy, the author, and guys like Donald Trump, they have publicly stated if they lost all of their wealth today, the method they would get it back, and they will get it back as part of the success system, is they would get it back through multi-level. There is no better device ever been devised for accumulating wealth or for distributing products in the multi-level industry. It's amazing. So many people have failed in multi-level, and I think it's part of the old Amway syndrome. And I'm not knocking Amway or Quick Start, don't get me wrong, but the old paradigm of how things are set up is just going away because it doesn't work. It doesn't work in the sense that about 98% of the people who come into multi-level literally don't make a penny. Now, if you took all the people who came into multi-level statistically and took all of their paychecks and averaged it out, the average paycheck in multi-level as an industry is $86. $86. Now, when you see people who are picking up checks literally in the millions of dollars per month in multi-level, how many folks are they offsetting? Because the truth is those people aren't making $86. That doesn't mean everybody's making $86. That just means that the folks who are getting rich at multi-level are making such an exorbitant sum, it's pulling up people who are actually losing money. Now, I know in the one that I got in, I'll just give you an example, I was actually into it for over $20,000 for over 6 months before I turned my first profit. And it took me on my 7th paycheck, I did a ledger sheet of money out, because you do have to advertise, there's a lot of costs they don't tell you about in multi-level, that I know in my own case, on my 7th check, when I did my register, I had made the grand total, after working long 18, 20-hour days, 7 days a week for the first 6 months. On my 7th check, I was exactly $15 ahead. Now, I have to say that once I had reached that point and they started adding zeros and more zeros and more zeros and more zeros, it's a trip. I mean, because you can feel guilty. You're saying, why are they sending me all this money? I didn't do anything. But the truth is, I had an extraordinary organization. And people always ask me, how on earth did you build all these, get hundreds of thousands of people in your organization? And I will tell you, I told them then as I will tell you now, I don't know. All I did is I saw a good idea, and I followed the plan, much like the plan you're going to hear from Walker Jones here in just a little bit. I followed the plan. And I know I signed up a lot of people. A lot of people washed out. Most of them washed out. But before they washed out, because they were losing money, they brought in other people, and they did something called roll-up. And I have to say that my fortune was certainly due to roll-up. It wasn't something I did. But what I did see, it gave me the leisure time to study multi-level. And for about 19 years, I get pounded by these offers of people who say, hey, would you join us? We want you to come in and be part of our company. I have turned every single one of them down flat. I wasn't interested. And some of the names of the companies that I was offered to come in at the very, very, very beginning, you know, as some of them are literally billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar companies, but they just didn't attract me. What I liked, I wanted the lazy man's way to riches. I'm like everybody else, Joe Carbo kind of guy, the guy who wrote that book. He wrote that book and made $3 million in 3 months. Isn't that fascinating? A guy dirt poor and broke. A good idea is something that just can't be stopped. When I saw the Oceanside Wealth Program, I saw a good idea and something that just makes sense. And in this day and age, as we're looking at a worldwide economic collapse, there's not even a question about it. We're in a depression. Everybody hates to say the D word, but it's there. And a depression is very simply defined as when you've got a lessening of value in currencies, as illustrated by the cost of gold in Federal Reserve notes, the U.S. dollars. Well, yeah, it costs a lot more. I've got gold that I bought at $200 an ounce or even $140 an ounce, and now it's near $1,000, right? So, gee, my gold went up in value, didn't it? No, it didn't. See, the gold didn't go anywhere. The value of the dollar went down. It now takes more of them to buy the same thing that you could buy yesterday. See, that's called inflation. And what we've got is a situation where we've got an international currency, which is the U.S. dollar, as everything has been pegged to it for a long, long time, and it's dropping like a stone in the overall scheme of things. Well, what's happening is now manufacturers, in order to build a product, it costs them more actual dollar units or Federal Reserve dollar units in order to get something manufactured. And that's okay, because you would expect the price would go up. Unfortunately, because of the lessening of the value of the dollar, what has happened is people, the customers, actually have less dollars in their pocket. So they're not buying things off the shelf. So the retailer then has to lower the dollar unit price in order just to clear the shelves. So what you've got is pressure on both ends of that Federal Reserve note dollar. One is driving it up, and the other says in order to move the economy, you've got to make them cost less because people have less liquid in their pocket. It kind of reminded me the other day of the big consternation about the sweatshops in Romania that everybody was all in a dither about, with Kathy Lee Gifford and some other folks, I guess, were all part of that in South America. But in Romania, it struck me in one way because I happened to meet a Romanian man shortly thereafter. It was fascinating because we shut it down. Oh, yay, with all the political pressure that we brought on Romania, was to shut down those sweatshops because those kids don't have to work under those conditions. Those adults don't have to work more than 8 hours a day, and blah, blah, blah. We poked our nose in, shut them down, and I'm telling you, there was nothing that could move you to tears more than the man from Romania who had talked about, please bring back your sweatshops. See, without the sweatshops in Romania, we have no opportunity. Well, now we can see that happening right here in America. For instance, we see a lessening of opportunities, simply no opportunities. So when you get one that makes sense, like the Oceanside Wealth Program, that's what really, really gets everybody excited and gives us hope, because we're going to come out of it. We're going to come out of it as a team, working together, and to explain that to us of how that works and the actual mechanics, ladies and gentlemen, it is my extraordinary pleasure to introduce this man of experience. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you to teach us, get your pencils and papers, teach us how we work this program, how we make it work. Very simply, anybody can do this. Mr. Broker Jones. Mr. Jones, are you with us, sir?